Let's talk about AEW Dynamite that just took place wherever they were.
Well, I don't even know now what's been edited out, but folks, it was filthy, whatever it was. But they were over there. Where were they this week? They were out on the West Coast.
This. Yeah, where were they? They were in Portland. Was it Portland?
Well, it's a shame. But but what again? I'm just saying that somebody needs to do something for poor Kenny to keep this thing from happening again. It looks like his irritable bowel syndrome is still with him. But they started out. That was June 11th, is what it was on Dynamite, with the long-awaited rematch between Will Osprey and Swerve Strickland. And we know what's been going on over the past several weeks is Osprey's trying to get Swerve and Page to be on the same page so that they can all band together and fight Moxley, because this is our last chance. We all have to work together. Even though that none of the baby faces ever accomplish anything except pissing all over each other. And meanwhile, this fucking decrepit world champion they've got just goes and then chokes out the remains afterwards. But nevertheless, the story is not the match here. The story is the overdone goddamn finish and afterbirth and continuing. I don't know what. They started the thing with a Western swing dancing routine, and it's a 4-hour show because they're doing the AEW Dynamite and Collision doubleheader. And I knew this was going to take a while, so I thought I'd just skip ahead to the finish because that's where we get to the meat of the matter. Because let's face it, folks, if you like this kind of thing, this is the kind of thing you like. But I went 25 minutes ahead and I'm like, what in the world? Are they going to go an hour? And I stopped at about 25 minutes in and they were trading forearms. It figures. So apparently the announcers are now mentioning, well, we've only got a few minutes remaining in the time limit. So my God, they're going to go 30 minutes. At 28 minutes, Osprey hit Swerve Strickland with both of his finishers, one after another. The fucking elbow thing, and then where he picks the guy up and spins him around and drops him on his head thing. 2 count. And I've already mentioned that Swerve had his chance. He's not nearly as over as he used to be, although they love the chant. But good God, if they could have just cleared the path for Osprey to go to the stadium and beat this fucking idiot and win that title, you might have something. Osprey, whether it's his own doing or whether people are trying to sabotage him, I don't know who's calling all this, but they're wearing the new off of him quick, Brian. They are just beating the fucking they're wearing out the new car smell. They're putting dings on his body. So after Swerve kicked out of both of Osprey's finishes, they grabbed a hold and laid there for a while because apparently they're early on their timing. They were supposed to be at a certain place at a certain time, and they still had more time left. So they laid there for a while. Then Osprey milked whether or not that he should give Swerve the Tiger Driver. Like that's worse than any of the other goddamn goofy-ass dangerous shit they do to each other. Oh, Lord, throwing him off the stage through the exploding table, well, that's one thing, but goddamn, don't give him that fucking Tiger Driver. So he's deciding whether he should do that, and then he tried to do it, but his arm gave out. And then Swerve gave Osprey a big move on his head. And then he gave Osprey the kick to the head. But then Swerve, who was just on offense for 2 big moves, gave him a big move on his head, jumped up, ran across the ring, gave him the kick in the head. Then he laid there selling too. Selling what? You just kicked the guy in the fucking head. And they both rolled to the apron. See, this is key. They got to be on the apron. And then Swerve took forever. And when I say forever, if anybody wants to go back and watch this, and put a stopwatch on it. You might need a sundial. Because he knows that he's got to be up on top when the bell rings. And so he's taken forever to get up there, and poor Osprey has to sit there on the apron in position to take the double stomp, which is just roll away. Just roll away. But as Swerve is standing on the top rope and Osprey is there waiting to be beaten by his goddamn finish, the double stomp off the top onto the apron, the bell rings and it's a 30-minute draw. Now, bear in mind, both of them should have been counted out of the ring, and it should have been over a minute before that when they were both laying on the apron, but that wasn't the finish they'd figured, so the referee was helpless. And so, and also, by the way, it made you realize that even more because the announcers were talking about how much time had expired and how much time was left. And while they were laying on a fucking apron, it wasn't a 10 count, it was a minute and a half count. So the point is now what we've got is a situation where Osprey has given this guy his best shit, can't beat him. And the way we left the draw was that Swerve was about to execute him, but the bell rang before he could chop his head off. Is that the way that you make your alleged top babyface in any way attractive to the public, Brian?
You know, I was thinking that's kind of a disappointing finish, all things considered. It's a bit of a letdown. And then they somehow made it a whole lot worse, it seemed, for those fans with the post-match. I'll say my least favorite thing has become Swerve's, I guess, the most prominent one where you see it because it takes him a little while. It did here. But, you know, other people do the move, but it was so bad here with Osprey, where the guy's going for the stomp and the downed opponent can't be down because they'll die if the guy lands on him with their feet.
Yeah.
So they have to kind of lean up a little bit to kind of cushion the blow. But it was taking so long, so 3 different times, Osprey's like sitting up like the Undertaker in slow motion. And he's just sitting there, like a great ab workout, but it took so long, and I don't like that. Because you don't sell anything else like that.
Stare up.
Yeah, there's nothing else that is sold like that. There's nothing else where all of a sudden you're leaning up and coming back to life and just waiting there in suspended animation for Swerve to come stomp you. And the fans there liked it. The match until
No, they did. They booed the draw. They
until
booed
the finish. Until the finish, they liked it. It's that kind of thing. But how is this helpful in any way? 2 baby faces wrestling this match, doing everything, a half hour. And again, Osprey, for a while, this Swerve never wins. Now it's Osprey never wins.
Well, hold on, because Osprey's going to look a whole lot stupider and worse here in a minute. Because now remember, I'm checking my notes. When last we saw Osprey take any punishment, Swerve gave him the big move on his head and the kick to the head. And then they both sold, and then Swerve went to the top rope. So the last minute and a half, Osprey was selling. Well, then Swerve gets on the fucking mic. And he wants a restart. He wants more time. He wants sudden death. And Osprey's rolled out on the floor, and he's selling, but he's looking. You get a camera shot of Osprey looking at Swerve. He's cognizant. He's conscious. And Swerve saying, I feel like shit, and I know you do too, but if you're the man I think you are, you're going to want sudden death. And you see Osprey hear this, and then the music plays. And here come Dick the Boozer and the Boar Horseman, slowly and boringly walking through the arena. Swerve is in the ring. Osprey's still on the floor, and we're not going to see Osprey for a while. Because as the Moxley bunch surrounds the ring, all of a sudden, into the ring from behind Swerve come the Cucamonga Kids, the Hardley Boys, the Lollipop Guild, Maddie and Nikki. And they jump on Swerve and they super kick Nana one time and he's dead. You'll never see him again. And then they handcuff Swerve to the ropes in the corner while Moxley is on the floor for some reason making goofy faces just at random. And then the Buckaroos super kick Swerve several times. And then they get a duffel bag. I think from Wheeler Useless. And they pulled out tennis shoes with thumbtacks on the bottom of them. And then these guys, and they're taking forever. They have to take their regular shoe off and put the thumbtack shoes on. And then they go for the super kick on Swerve with the thumbtack shoes. Bear in mind, from the time that the previous match was over, it's been 4 minutes. And before that, Osprey was selling for 1.5 minutes, right? We established that before the end of the match. But we also saw him looking at Swerve in a state of consciousness when Swerve was challenging him. Osprey just jumps in right at this point and stands up in front of Swerve, and they kick him with the thumbtack shoes. So he's been sitting on the floor for 4 minutes watching all this shit go on, and just then jumped in. And then the Bucks, and they act like, oh, should we have done that? And the doctor jumps in and puts a fucking washcloth over Osprey's face because the announcer said, oh my God, Osprey's gushing blood. No, he's not. Because it's a fake kick with fake shoes, and the doctor put the fucking cloth over his face so you could see it was fake, or you couldn't see it was fake. And the fans are chanting, fuck the Bucks. They're not even trying to censor fuck anymore now on TBS. And in the middle of all this, Moxley's bunch just disappeared. They never did anything, and they were never referred to again. And by the time all this was over with, the match and all that bullshit, we were 45 minutes into the show. So, Brian, what... After Osprey does everything and can't beat the guy, and then the guy's ready to kill Osprey, and the only thing that saves him is the bell. And then Osprey rolls out on the floor and lets all this other shit go on with these other fucking heels before he jumps in to sacrifice himself. Fuck, he could have called 911 from the floor and the cops would have been there quicker, and he rolled in. And then they do a fake angle and they take him out with a goddamn cloth over his face so you can't see that the thumbtack soled tennis shoes that he was kicked with are phony. What'd you think?
Again, the match was the match. The post-match went on forever. As soon as they start playing that music, it's kind of perfect for the Death Riders because it's just lazy, like lazy guitar. Nobody wants to hear it. No one reacts to them coming out there. And then the Bucks, somehow the Bucks are even less over than the Moxley crew. And the stupid thing with the super kicks, how long did that go on? One after another. Why is Swerve standing up? Why does Swerve keep standing up to set himself up to be kicked in the face? Stay down.
Turn around and stick your ass up in the air.
I know you're handcuffed, but don't stick your chin up. I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, I don't know. They're trying to make their heels really strong going into that big event. The problem is they got the wrong heels. And all the baby faces fight each other.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. The only people that baby faces can beat are each other. And they always lose everything. Well, but, they got one of the legendary baby faces from Mexico coming to help them out, Brian. I was glad to see this. This will take care of the problem. They'll be selling out those NBA arenas again in no time. Because Mystico now in AEW on television. He wrestled here. This guy's that Blake the Christian. He was accompanied by John the Baptist.
No, he's Blake Christian, not Blake the Christian. He's Blake Christian. I don't remember who he was accompanied by.
Wasn't John the Baptist?
It may, actually, I can't say it wasn't because I don't remember who it was.
Okay, Brian, you may be more up to date on the lucha scene, but is Mystico normally more impressive than this, or is this where he's at right now?
Mystico is a big star, was one of the most successful draws in Arena Mexico history. Had that run as Sin Cara, which MJF later brought up, did not go over well. Even though they seemingly wanted him to. Again, it was during the Vince era, so nothing really worked right at all. But he needs the right opponent and he needs the right setting. You know, you could take the most over Japanese wrestler ever, you know, whoever that may be at different points, and just put him in the middle of a random match on a random wrestling show. It may not work. I don't think it was terrible. But again, if you want to showcase the guy, it should be 3 minutes, look spectacular, do one really amazing thing, not everything you're going to do in the match with MJF at Arena Mexico, and win. But
also, I mean, this wasn't too long. It was brief, but it was like, again, he did his, you know, he had a match like he's a goddamn giant star for the audience that's seeing him, rather than, who the fuck is this guy? He's on pay-per-view next month. We got to get him over. He didn't go out there to get over with a new audience. He went out there to have the match that he has where he's not going to get hurt and he's going to beat this guy fairly handily.
Well, did you hear how they were talking about him? They were talking about it was Mil Mascaras coming in.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is they're putting Mystico over as, my God, the legend. Oh my God, he's here. And you're just seeing a guy that he's not as impressive as Bandido or Gravity or Helium or any of these other fucking guys. He's just walking through some shit. I'm not saying, I know a lot of people, I want to make sure I make this clear, because a lot of people are saying, well, goddamn Cornette, make up your mind. He's not supposed to have the main event of Starrcade 86 with this guy. No, I'm not saying. There's two different things between having a long competitive match and working with a guy as a job guy where you're not trying to get over. He wasn't, if this is his impressive shit, he ain't as impressive as fucking Bandido or Vikingo or whatever. It would seem to me, if they're trying to get Mystico over, then he should come out working to fucking get over. He Okada'd this thing. He sleptwalked through it. He just did the shit that he needs to do. It wasn't long. He won, but he didn't stand out as he's not as impressive as our friend Frank Mortise. So it was nice if you know that he's a big deal, but he wouldn't become a big deal to you from this, I guess is what I'm saying. But nevertheless, they're going to hoke it up more anyway, because after the match is over, here comes the Hurt Syndicate. And there was kind of some staring and etc. And finally, MVP spoke up and pitched it to MJF, and MJF cut a promo on Mystico. And the fans are booing the shit out of him. I guess they were happy at that point finally to see a fucking heel. But the whole thing now is MJF said, I'm going to unmask you in Mexico, and I'm going to be wearing the red, white, and blue. And he shoots the confetti off and drops the flags and the streamers, the red, white, and blue. The United States is such heels to the rest of the world right now. The fans in the United States are booing the fucking flag. This is a goddamn bizarro. Anyway.
I think they were booing MJ. MJF got booed out of the building more than we've seen. Well,
yes, but you could, that's the thing, is you can now use the American flag to get heat as a fucking heel. We've come this far as a country. And then Mystico snatched the microphone away from him and spoke broken English in the voice of the mayor of Munchkinland. He literally sounded like Billy Barty. Do you remember that name? Look him up, kids. Yeah. Billy Barty.
Sigmund the Sea Monster.
Yeah. He sounded like this. He sounded like he was talking like the little people.
He was in the movie Body Slam. And he was in UHF, Noodles Macintosh.
And so again, yes, if it's for Mexico, that's great. But on United States television, we're trying to, MJF, who's trying to be in the top heel group here, is having a promo battle with the mayor of Munchkinland, who's speaking Spanish to him. That's where MJF called him Sloppy Sin Cara. And then Mystico hits MJF and the Hurt Syndicate jumps him and they're going for the mask. But here comes Kevin Knight, Hong Kong Phooey, and Masquerita Dorito. And the heels have to roll to the floor. The baby faces, all three of them, they hit the far ropes and they get off kilter, but they're doing a triple dive and they dive on everybody. And Dorito, by the way, replaced the other guy, a Commander? Was that who was supposed to be in this six-man?
Yeah, Commander was one of the international killers in this group.
Yes. Well, he got killed domestically because he got injured for real. So instead of just saying the guy's injured and Dorito's going to take his place, they had the Hurt Syndicate video of him jumping Commander in the back, but beating him up, he's already down type phony shit. Tony, in his mind and the way that things have to be in order in his mind, he couldn't just announce that this guy that nobody gives a shit, that's in this cold six-man and nobody gives a shit about, we're going to substitute him because he's hurt. They have to do a phony angle to explain it. So then they've done the dives, and then all six guys wandered around for a while, and they started the six-man tag. The Hurt Syndicate, Lashley, Benjamin, and MJF against who I dubbed the Squirt Syndicate. Hong Kong Phooey, Kevin Knight, and Dorito. And I think they've jumped the shark finally with the Hurt Syndicate. I mean, part of this, it could have been okay if they just beat these fucking little shit balls up and get some heat. They'd started beating the shit out of them at the beginning. MJF, by the way, dressing in the MVP style tights. That looks good. It shows him being a part of the group but still he's individual. It's an homage, whatever. But at one point, they had to let these goofballs take over, and these guys are not ready to handle this. And they shit the bed. At one point, mostly MJF sold toward the beginning and to the middle of the match. But did you see the part where Kevin Knight had MJF going and he reached to the corner to tag Hong Kong Phooey? But Hong Kong Phooey jumped into the ring and walked over to him and tagged his partner while he was standing there in the ring because he was so intent on turning MJF around to shoot him off in the direction he was supposed to go for the next spot. He got into the ring, walked over to his partner, and tagged him. How do you do that if you've been in wrestling school for 2 weeks?
Even the young bucks don't do that.
That shouldn't even work in your brain. I don't.
That's true. When have you ever seen anyone do that?
Well, it's like if I got up today and said, I'm going to go walk on some water. I just wouldn't.
You know, the end of this match, specifically the stuff of Kevin Knight and Speedball working with Shelton and Bobby, fell apart. It completely fell apart. And if you watched, it looked like, I don't want to name names, but it looked like a couple of guys had routines in their head that they had already figured out how it was going to work out, and the other guy may not have realized it.
Yes, and or did not executed what was in their head properly. I don't know. Well, okay. Again, the match made no sense to put together to be competitive with these baby faces when you've got all your stars in one basket here. And then there was a point where MJF had been selling and he rolled and dove and made a hot tag to Lashley. But of course, there was not a peep because heels can't make a hot tag. That's not even a thing that happens. But he did it. And then MJF rolled to the floor. So Spitball and Knight got in against Lashley and Benjamin, and just while they just started a four-way while the referee was staring at him, and the babyface's partner, Dorito, was on the apron staring at this. But the Hurts were beating the shit out of the two babyfaces while the other babyface was on the apron watching. If you're going to do a four-way in a six-man tag and the referee's going to stand there and watch it, then what is preventing the other babyface from coming in? Because you're already doing shit without a tag. So why would the babyface stay? Oh, there's only two heels in the ring, so even though they're fucking pulling my partner's balls off and shoving them down their throat, I can't get in. It's against the rules. What the fuck? Then MJF asked to tag back in against Spitball and hit a big move on him and got a 2 count. What is wrong with these people? This fucking little child kicking out on MJF. Then they bumped MJF out again. And then Spitball was doing the little goofy ballet kicks with Lashley. And then that's when Fooey and Kevin Knight tried to do a double team spot where Lashley was in the corner and Hong Kong was going to alley-oop Kevin Knight over his head, and he was going to catch Lashley in a double T or in a DDT is what I'm trying to say. But he went up over fucking Fooey, and when he landed, he missed the grip and they fucking stuff. So he just drugged Lashley down on top of his head. And then Shelton grabs Spitball and gives him a German suplex, but the little dork did a flip and land on his feet. And as Shelton stood up and turned around, Knight was going to jump up and drop kick him. At least that's what I think it was, because that's what Shelton was bracing for.
That's what it looked like.
But at the last second, Knight didn't do anything. He jumped up and kind of stuck his leg up, but he didn't throw a leg out. He wasn't anywhere close enough to Shelton to hit him with a knee. He just jumped straight up in the air. Shelton is already turning, putting his hand up to take the drop kick, and he's already starting to lean backwards. So when he realizes that the fucking guy didn't hit him with anything, he stumbled backwards on his ass and spun back up, and then they hit him with a double drop kick. So then, bear in mind, the referee has stood stark, staring, slack-jawed, watching this four-way for minutes with no tags. And now you look on the wide shot, Dorito has just gone down on the floor. He's standing on the floor, not even participating through this whole thing. And MJF has completely disappeared. And so now the Hurt Syndicate looks like stumblebums working with these non-working botch children. And then the two baby faces do a dive. And suddenly then Dorito jumps up from the floor, runs across the ring, jumps up to the top and dives on MJF on the other side, who was doing nothing to anybody and hadn't been seen for 5 minutes. And then Spitball went up to the top, and MVP gets up from commentary and hits him with his cane and knocks him off the top rope, and MJF hits the DDT 1, 2, 3. This is why, even if they get good talent, if they sign good talent in AEW, or if some talent just accidentally starts getting over, they still can't draw with it because they can't pick talent to face it. And they always put the star in a position where they are devalued by the indie children running rampant. And the fact that the manager of Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley, and MJF, the Hurt Syndicate, would have to interfere and use his cane to fuck this small, child-sized dork. This should have been a job match with underneath baby faces, which they are, to get the Hurt Syndicate ready to draw some money somehow with somebody else you can buy as a top main event guy or guys. But instead, if they need to cheat to beat this twink, then how are they to be taken seriously against real fucking wrestlers? So it was a good run, Hurts. It must have been love, but it's over now.
All right. Well, that was.
Oh, hold on. No, there's more. There's more. There's more. Because then the Hurts started beating up the baby faces after the match. Too little, too late. And they take Dorito's mask off, and everybody, oh, that's terrible. And then Mystico runs in. And again, while Lashley and Benjamin are on the floor 10 feet away, instead of Mystico running in and fucking pickling MJF with something just to get a little something for their match, he's got to spin around MJF and take him down in his arm bar and start cranking the arm bar to where Shelton and Bobby have to flummox instead of getting in and grabbing the guy, and then Mystico runs off. After all of that. So, what the fuck? What the actual fuck is wrong with these people? And I'm not, Kevin Knight, start him off at the bottom as a preliminary guy, give him a year where he loses most but wins a few, but then he starts winning more than he loses, and then something happens and he gets involved in something. You got a talent. Dorito is the same or not as good as 10 other interchangeable lucha guys that they've already got. And Hong Kong Phooey, you couldn't bet on him in a fight with a lingerie model. Just because he's a nice guy in the locker room or somebody's impressed with his fucking gymnastic ability, I'm sorry, he's an insult to a professional wrestling program. But this is their stars. What the fuck is the matter with these people, Brian?
I don't know. The Hurt Syndicate in a weird place where they kind of just do things amongst themselves and every now and then beat other people. It may take a while like this did, but there's no feud. You know, maybe they'll get behind the idea they're there to help MJF get the world title. He was there to help them. They're already tag team champions, just to help them, I guess. But they're not working with anyone. There's no feud. There's no...
Who is there?
I mean, they kind of teased this last week with the International Killers, and then Commander went away, and he was replaced by, you know, it's like Jimmy Snuka leaving, and here's CV Alfie. They just got another guy and threw him in there. It went a while, and again, it was kind of painful watching Shelton and Bobby. You know, I know sometimes sometimes they wobbled, it didn't even go down, but still, they're selling for guys. I'm not saying like MJF shouldn't sell if he's getting attacked by one of these guys. But Shelton and Bobby selling for Speedball was ridiculous.
And see, that's the thing is that they're trying to, you know, sell and register at a realistic level. But when the guys are fucking up the moves or the timing of the moves or trying to do shit that's just above them, don't do shit you don't know how to do. That, you know, that would help out. But they're trying to help these guys as best they can, you know, because you got to work to some extent with everybody, but they need some grown adult men that are serious wrestlers that people can buy as a threat in the ring to these guys, both in the ring and on the microphone. And they haven't got either because all their baby faces are fighting amongst themselves and they're all a bunch of fucking pussies. What were we just saying, Brian, a minute ago about the other baby faces? Old Swerve and Osprey. They're fighting with each other. Osprey looks like shit. And now they got another big baby face, right? The old hangnail, Adam Page. He's the guy that burns people's house down when he's a heel, but as a baby face, he's just a feckless putz. Because while Osprey is getting himself beat to death, trying to get Swerve and Page to cooperate with each other in order to fight the evil boar horseman, Page is supposed to be doing an interview. They play his music, and here comes Claudio and old Wheeler dragging Page out of the entranceway with his hands tied behind his back and his mouth duct taped. And everyone's they're just kicking his shit out of him and dragging him to the ring. And they take him and roll him in the ring and beat him up a little more. And Dick the Boozer gets in the ring with the microphone, and his opening line is, "I'm terribly sorry about all this." And now, because in his fantasy in the movie that he's shooting, old Moxley thinks he's, the head terrorist or whatever. So he proceeds to speak calmly and boringly to Page, while Page looks like a fucking moron being held down by these two. And the fans are chanting, "Shut the fuck up."
Like Big Boy Caprice on Downers.
And he droned on forever. Did you understand what he was really getting at here? It's not like it's ever apparent.
Man, it's been a year now. I still have no idea what the fuck his problem is with anything.
We don't know.
No idea what's going on with
He wants them to be better, so he wants them to be tougher, but he wants to bring your best. Well, but meanwhile, I've got my guys beating the shit out of you and tying you up so I can say this. But there were no referees or officials in sight. When it's convenient for them, if two girls are about to get in a fucking slap fight, they'll run a dozen people out there to get in the way. But when one of their goddamn top stars is hogtied and fucking tied up and having the shit kicked out of it, it's just, don't go out there and do anything about this. It doesn't make any sense. It's schizophrenic. They're all over the place. Something gets broken up in an instant. Something nobody helps anybody at all. If some people are trying to justify it, the announcers are saying, well, Page hasn't made a lot of friends in the locker room. What about the cops or the security or the referees? Do they have to be your friend? Fuck, get an ICE agent in there, for Christ's sake. They need some more people to bully and push around.
No one saw them dragging around this duct-taped man?
They had to drag him past the owner of the company. Tony Khan has established he sits at Gorilla. They had to drag him past the owner. Who did that's none of it. There's no consistency. There's no logic. So then, after Moxley finishes his promo, Page just leans up and headbutts him. And Moxley sells that, and his heels beat him up some more. And then music plays, and here comes Samoa Joe and Shapoopy and guess a Hobbs. I don't remember who else was there. And then the heels ran off. Well, why didn't you fucking play that song 5 minutes ago? What the fuck?
He ran from the song.
Where was Joe and all of those guys? That they just, right when Page starts fighting back, the only offensive blow Page struck, well, now, hey guys, come on out. It looks like we might be able to take him now. He's coming back. Before they were scared, they didn't want to. And then Page screamed and drooled and ran after him.
Man, and we're still weeks away from that big event, so who knows what'll happen next week.
I don't know if I'd say who knows or who cares, but...
should he light Moxley's house on fire? It's been established. I'm not saying it was a good idea, but now that it's been established that this man is a drunken arsonist.
But here's the thing. They could save money this time because they don't need to buy a house or shoot it. They just use that meme of a burning dumpster floating down a fucking river. Hey, look, I set Moxley's house on fire.
Maybe don't do that. That meme.
So then they gave us Megan Brain and Penelope Pit Stop against Anna Jay and Ty Mello Jello. And then they gave us a VTR package because the big dream match.
You didn't watch that at all?
Oh, now you're not going to stop us and slow us down.
Oh, yes. That was good. That was a good match. It was good.
It's good.
It was good. It was a good match. And I mean, like, Anna Jay just looks good. How do you not just stop and watch that for a little bit?
How many stars you think Uncle Dave gave it?
I don't know. How many tongue wags do I think he gave it? I don't know.
I don't think Dave tongue wags at girls like Anna Jay anymore. But then, where you just don't snicker over there. Gladiator.
It was a good match.
Then
It was a good match, Gladiator. And that's all I have to say about that.
I don't like these young girls. I like back when the girl wrestlers knew how to hold their liquor by the ears. So then we had a package of Kenny and Oblada in Japan. I must admit that it does look like our friend Olo Sleepy used to work harder in Japan than he does now. I will admit that. When was this footage from? The 90s?
No, this is from like what, 2016, 17, 18? Right before the start of AEW. I mean, it's the years leading up to the start of AEW.
Talk about time being hard on a son of a bitch. So this led up to the contract signing, and that's what everybody's been wanting to talk about. That's what the clip went out on the internet. That's when they jumped the shark for this week. However else you want to lay this out. They're getting Oblada and Twinkle Toes in the ring together to sign the contract for their big dream match showdown at the stadium in Texas. That all of the AEW fans are just, oh my, it's going to be so great. Oh my gosh, it's them. And for the occasion, Brian, I might add, Tony Schiavone was in the ring as he calls these two out, and at least they were wearing suits of some description. They'd just come out, Oblada left his fishing outfit home, and Kenny didn't come out in fucking sweatpants. But Schiavone is there with the table in the ring, and it's because one of them is the international champion and the other one's the intercontinental champion or whatever. So now when they have this match, it's going to be for the new AEW Unified Championship, and they got a new belt made for the occasion. The other two belts are only like a year and a half old.
Well, plus, isn't Okada's belt tied to the Continental Tournament?
No, that ended when Kingston lost something to somebody.
But then Okada won the next year's tournament. I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know.
Well, nevertheless, but with the AEW Unified Champion, what does Moxley have to say about that? He's the goddamn AEW World Champion. How can you have the two of the many secondary belts merged into a belt called the AEW Unified Belt when the fucking world champion doesn't have anything to goddamn say about it? What sense does any of this make? They're just making belts to give guys belts to have matches for belts.
Do you think they should unify the Unified Championship and the World Championship once they get it out of the briefcase? At
some point.
A unified world championship?
Do you think that they're going to find out that Moxley lost the goddamn thing? It got confused somehow and forgot where he left it, and he came up with the briefcase angle just because he didn't want to tell him he lost the belt?
It would just be funny if it opened up like, hey, what's all that brown and gray powder? Where's the belt? Where's the belt, Moxley? After all this shit, what'd you do with the belt?
I traded it for the dream powder. But so back to Kenny and our friend Oblada, they both signed a contract, and Kenny speaks breathlessly about how great the match is going to be. And then suddenly here comes Don Fallis in the entranceway. And he and Kenny start going back and forth. And even when Don is saying some stuff that could be construed as serious, you can't take it as serious. And again, he's the overt comedy, rather the on-purpose comedy, the comedy you can see through. Rather than the other night, he took a cheap shot from ringside and had to stumble and fall down. But they do their back and forth, and then, Kenny's like, I know all your tricks, and Don, well, you don't know this one. And guess who jumps Kenny from behind? The guy he's in the ring with that he's about to fight, Oblada, who jumps him from behind. And Brian, I don't know if by then your mind may have been wandering, but when Okada jumped on Kenny.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Did you look at the blows in quotation marks?
I knew you were going to go there. Yeah, the forearms.
He looked like a 9-year-old having a tantrum. They were in no way connecting with any force. It was like he was just crying like, wah! On Kenny's back. And they got the slowest paced, most boring heat ever, where they'd do something. Callis pulls out the police baton and it telescopes out. And they hit him a shot with it in the stomach. And he goes down. The diverticulitis. Okay. See, hit him in the stomach. But now they're just walking around. And then they hit him in the head with it. Okay. And then within seconds, there's a doctor and there's referees and there's a stretcher. Again, the previous segment, they had a guy practically disemboweled and nobody came out. But now within seconds, this manager and one guy have hit this other guy twice. Here they come. And they're just putting him on a stretcher without even looking at him. Is he breathing? We don't know. Get him on a stretcher. That'll help. Because they got to do the spot. And then Okada jumps on the top rope and comes off with an elbow drop off the top rope on his stomach. Okay, and then more nothing happens while Chris Daniels gets in the ring and is arguing with Don and Okada while they're putting Kenny on his stretcher. And then, but finally, Oblada goes up and goes the top rope. Kenny's on the stretcher on the wheelie thing on the floor. And Okada comes off with an elbow drop off the top rope to Kenny's stomach while he's on the gurney. And Kenny proceeds to projectile vomit a fucking geyser of fake blood everywhere. And I mean, this wasn't like I'm going to bite the rubber and I'm going to bleed from the mouth. For one thing, they just use fake blood because they're unprofessional and they don't care. But for another thing, it wasn't even like I'm going to bleed from the mouth and cough up a little blood. It was like goddamn Saw 17. Brian, if this blood had allegedly been real and he regurgitated this much blood, would there be any possibility of saving this man's life?
Oh, no, he'd have to be at the hospital at a minimum. He may be dead. For that much. It was a lot, and it was just like he was gurgling it, and it was spitting out.
And when he was making the funny faces, the funny puffy faces that he makes in the ring when he's huffing and puffing and pointing and going to hit the ropes and do the Canterbury knee or whatever, he looked like Louis Armstrong trying to play the fucking trumpet. He was blowing on purpose in front of the camera so that it would go further. And then so they had given him a sip of like a pint of this shit. And it was so ridiculous. And then plus when it got on the white shirt, then you could tell the food coloring because it's not as dark as real blood. It was lighter, but no, there was no potential way this was in any way real. And we didn't read his obituary the next day. So now, if you're keeping track, they super kicked Will Osprey, the one top babyface, in the face with thumbtack adorned tennis shoes, and they had to cover his face up because he wasn't bleeding, but they said he was, so they couldn't show it. But he's fucked up. Then they brought Page out with his hands tied behind his back, his mouth duct taped, and just kicked the shit out of him. Now they brought Kenny out and they killed him. They killed Kenny. You bastards. They just actually what looked like murdered him and had him carried out by medical authorities. And the only one that didn't actually bleed or get carried out, or both of the top 4 baby faces, was Swerve. And he still got the shit kicked out of him, didn't he? I think, didn't he?
Yeah, he got super kicked in the face a bunch of times with the thumbtacks.
Yeah, before the thumbtacks. Yeah, he was handcuffed and chained to the wall like a torture victim in Torquemada's Rampage. Boy, these baby faces, I'll tell you what, I want them on my side.
You see?
They get the job done.
This is why MJF was smart. This is why he knew he had to be aligned with the Hurt Syndicate. He's safe.
But, and then after they murdered Kenny, even though nobody was really chasing them, and the people that came out were just concerned about getting Kenny back to get him some attention, Don then grabs old Sleepy and says, "Let's get out of here. They're going to kill us." And they ran to the back and jumped in an SUV and sped off at a high rate of speed with nobody whatsoever chasing them.
Yeah, who was going to kill them?
They were scared.
Yeah, was it the fans or was it the personnel? Who was going to kill them exactly?
I don't know. The fans were going to kill them if they didn't leave pretty soon, because the fans were pretty well sick of them. But I know there was no threat from any of the wrestling-oriented personnel in the building to do anything to them.
Well, the best part about it was, in a classic AEW moment, just a throwback to the good old days of Awful. As they're running out of the building, "Come on, we gotta go, they're gonna kill us." Marvez runs out of nowhere.
Yes, yes.
Nowhere. Here's Marvez.
Yes.
We haven't seen him all show.
No. They're running. They're in the back of the building where the cars park, and it was still in the building, not in a parking lot, but they're in the back and they're running. And there's Marvez just standing there holding a microphone as they unplanned run by. And he's like, "Well, what in the world are you guys doing?" And they said, "We don't have time to talk to you now." And they ran off. So do they just stand him back there? And if anybody runs by, he said, "Talk to him."
He was ready to run out. It was one of the funnier moments, I think, of the whole show. That's what you want, funny moments in the middle of these segments. But again, they're putting over their heels as strong as possible. If we want to look on the bright side, at least it was one of those fold-out nightsticks, not a screwdriver. Maybe we've moved on from that level of ridiculousness. I don't know. Omega, geez, if there were any athletic commissions, they would watch this and go, "There's no way I'm clearing this fucking guy." We'll see. Again, they put over, how many weeks away are we from All In?
That's July 12th, so we're a month away.
I mean, it's a lot of TV time.
Well, he's going to need a complete bowel fucking removal and replacement and all that other stuff. That takes time.
He should wear a bodysuit like Slim Goodbody. Show his organs.
He could point to him for the kids on the way out. "Now, see, kids, here's where I got my pancreas replaced, and they had to remove the spleen and put it up next to my asshole."
Now, that was the official end of Dynamite. It rolled into Collision, but in terms of that would have been the typical overrun, but that was the end of Dynamite.
Yes, that was an overreach of an overrun. That was the end of regulation, and we've got a couple more things to comment on. But Brian, I can't help but think that instead of the collapsible police baton, if instead the heels had taken something that's really tough and durable and hit Kenny in the stomach with it, like maybe a work boot from our new friends over at Brunt, and just kicked it with like the Marin work boot from Brunt, just kicked him right in the gut with it. Boy, howdy, he'd have gone down, he'd have never come up, because these boots, they're made to take a licking and keep on ticking. You love your Brunt work boots, don't you?
First of all, they're comfortable. Second of all, I feel like they make me taller. So those are two good things to start with. I feel like, oh man, I'm a good 6'2" now. But no, they're great. These are high quality. These are great. Suzanne saw them. She said, "How come you didn't get me anything?" I said, I have a promo code if you want to get yourself something. But these are really great boots. And I've become quickly a big fan of Brunt. Luckily, they sent a hat too. Because now I can advertise how much I like them. This is good stuff.
You and of course now you're not known for going out and slopping around in the mud and working at the yard, but down south on the plantation here, I've had a lot of trouble with boots, and this is for real. This is legitimate. It's not even a bit here. I had a pair of boots several years ago that I wore them to work out in the yard and a wheelbarrow and fucking dig and goddamn carry shit and brush and whatever. And I wore them until the goddamn sole came off of them. And I had to duct tape the sole back onto the boot. So I was walking around with one boot with duct tape around the toe of it and then when the duct tape would get wet and or fucking worn around, then I would trip because the sole would start flapping on the toe. You see what I'm saying there? Do you see what I'm saying there to you, boy? The toe was flapping on the sole.
You let your soul go.
I let my soul go. My soul was loose. Soul Patrol. So Stace got me another pair of boots, and they were a beautiful looking pair of boots, but I wore them one time out in the yard. And I goddamn wore a sore on my heel that took 2 weeks to heal. I couldn't wear any shoe. I couldn't hardly walk. And then I got the ones that I've had until just up here just lately. And they've been fine. They didn't hurt my feet. And they've got a non-slip sole. And they're good boots for the mud and everything. But over the springtime, you may have heard, Brian, that it's rained about 1.5 feet this year so far.
It's raining today.
Down here in Louisville.
Didn't you say it's
raining
today?
It poured rain here just a little while ago while we were doing this program. It's rained all the time. When the Monroes were out cleaning the creek out this spring and I was back there, the boots that I had, they're not waterproof. I was like, shit, my feet are cold. I looked down and my feet are soggy like I was barefoot in the creek from all the water down there. So the Marin work boot from our friends, did I mention at Brunt? That's Brunt, BRUNT, bruntworkwear.com. These things are badass. They're comfortable. They're like tennis shoes on your feet, but protection and durability. They're lightweight. They're waterproof. They're slip and oil resistant, heat resistant, electrical hazard rated. Brian, that means you can stand on your roof in a severe lightning storm. And if you get hit, it'll just fry the people in the house. It won't hurt you at all.
Well, again, I don't think, first of all, don't do that. Second of all, I don't think it means that. Third of all, let's talk about the positives. Let's talk about the realities. I like the fact that I now have something I can go out there and get dirty with the kids. I never want to get my flip-flops dirty. Now I got a good pair of boots.
Your flip-flop. Well, you'll lose 4 or 5 toes into some kind of work-related accident from people with shovels and pickaxes and everything.
Not anymore.
In flip-flops you would, but now you won't. And as a matter of fact, take a pickaxe to one of these son of a guns. Take the boot and put it on your neighbor's head and then try to hit them in the head with a pickaxe and see whether that boot stops it or not.
How about this? Let's make it something gentle, something that can't offend. Load your boot like the grappler. That's a good test. There you go. That's a test.
Tap the toe of the boot on the ground and then kick your neighbor in the head with it. And if he goes into a coma, you'll know.
No, again, no violence. No violence. No violence on this wrestling show, sir. No violence on this wrestling show.
Well, I'll tell you what, from oily workshop floors to muddy farm fields and everywhere in between, the Marin 6-inch soft toe is built for workers across a variety of trades. But Brunt, folks, our new friends, and they're good friends. They're good, especially on a Ritz cracker. They're not just about work boots. They offer a full range of high-performance gear built for tough jobs, heavy-duty work pants to weather-resistant jackets. They design durable, reliable workwear to keep you protected and productive, or protective and productive. But you ain't going to get your feet hurt when you're out there working in these boots.
No.
And they have reinvented comfort for the hardest workers out there. Again, the hats, the clothes, they have doilies for all occasions. Well, and right now,
I don't know about that, but yes, right now.
You can, when you're working out at the job site and you're pumping out a septic tank, right next to the septic tank, you set one of these doilies down, you put your afternoon tea on it, and you can't live like a savage. For a limited time, folks, we don't know how long this is going to last. If I were you, I'd act quickly. Some good things go away after a period of time. But right now, you're going to get $10 off at Brunt. by using the code JCE at checkout. Just go to Brunt. Again, BRUNT. They're going to bear the brunt of it. BruntWorkwear.com. Use the code JCE. $10 off. They let you try all their products on the job. And after you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you there. But they're great boots, great hats. The bulletproof vests are good for any wrestling manager. But you can join over 500,000 other satisfied customers with comfortable, non-injured feet by going to BruntWorkwear.com. Use the code JCE. You're going to be saving $10 on the best old boots that you're ever going to kick somebody's ass in.
No, they have another pair I actually want to get too. These are great. These are tremendous. Brunt. Don't Brunt. Use Brunt.
And waterproof.
Yeah.
And mud.
And that.
I'm telling you what, well, if you're pumping out a septic tank or something.
Why do you keep going there? How about dealing with a
Well, I only go there once every couple of years, but you got to do it once every couple of years. That shit builds up.
All right.
Anyhow,
once again, we can't end on that note. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Please support them. Great products. Brunt.
BruntWorkwear.com. Promo code JCE. $10 off. The best old boots in that you will ever have in your entire life. They've also, in addition to the Marin.
Oh no, come on.
They've also got the Omen. No, OHMAN. It's pronounced Omen, and that's a good omen. They're also some of the best-selling work boots that they have.
That's right. That's a good omen. And with that,
yes,
we'll go from Brunt to Grunt back to AEW Dynamite. Yes, or actually AEW Collision, I guess.
Bearing the brunt of AEW television. Well, it's downhill from here, as we will see when we talk about the ratings in a minute, but they followed up the murder of Kenny Olivier with alas, poor Kenny, I knew him well, with a match between Kyle Felcher and Anthony Bowens. I didn't choose to watch that match. And then, did you enjoy seeing poor Carlos Cabrera? I haven't seen him in 30 years, but it looks like they caught him ready to go on a shopping trip to Costco and said, hey, you got to get in the ring.
He delivered his lines too so slowly, you thought he was being held hostage.
I know, it was like are we trying to read between the lines here? It was.
How do I say as much as I can without stopping WWE from hiring me?
But I know. Somebody's going to say, well, he's the Spanish announcer. English is a second language. That's why he was so halting and it was so awkward and it was just didn't come together. But he worked for the WWF doing a Spanish commentary 30 years ago. It's not like he's recently been introduced to fucking English. So whatever, he's there in his casual clothes, like they just said, hey, jump in the ring. And he beats around the bush and awkwardly introduces the living legend, Atlantis, to a small smattering of applause. And then Atlantis and Atlantis Jr. come out, and they're both in Atlantis outfits. But, Brian, you could tell, I don't know how old Atlantis is. I think the announcer said he was 62. But you could tell this was an elderly man wearing a lucha costume from the time he first walked out. Could you not?
But what a lovely and timeless costume it is. I actually think it's one of the better looking lucha costumes. More classic, themed, classy.
Yes. But he still looked like a fucking... I mean, you could imagine if he didn't have the mask and the outfit on, him wandering around the rehabilitation retirement home with the odd little old man movements. He doesn't still wrestle seriously, right? They were doing this as an angle.
I haven't heard, again, I don't follow lucha too closely right now. I haven't heard of him wrestling.
Is he booked up coming to wrestle FTR since they did this angle, or is it to... Well, here's what happened. Atlantis and Atlantis Jr. came out. They didn't get a chance to speak because FTR and Stokely came out. And I said, oh, fuck it. And I wasn't even half listening because it was a long promo and they're healing the Mexican fellows. And Dax was, doing it where he asked the question and he's going to answer it again. And they finally end up getting in a fight. And it was all FTR could do to get the decrepit 62-year-old man down. I don't know if he ever actually went down. I don't know if he could get back up if he went down. He just kind of bent over and started hunching up a little bit while they were beating on him. But again, you've got FTR who, regardless of the way that they've been treated or presented recently, they're quality performers in the ring. There's some way that they could potentially be rehabilitated to some standing. And it's not even fighting luchadors that are the complete antithesis of their in-ring style and what makes them special. But it's goddamn ancient, antique luchadors that were, what was
a living legend? Carlos Cabrera said, a living legend. You're bringing back a legend. For the record, he was born September 62. And
okay, then I am more right now, Brian. I'm more spry. I could throw a better punch and I could run faster than Atlantis Senior, who is 1 year my junior.
This is good. Are we setting up a match?
I ain't gonna work with him because I'd have to do all the work. So they start getting the man down, and Adam Cole runs in to make a save. But here comes Kyle Felcher and take a shit. And then here comes another masked guy. And then here comes Bandido. And then here comes Mystico. And now they're having a fight between people that wasn't even in this goddamn original issue. And then they play music. And Brody King comes in. Why did they have to play 10 seconds of Brody King's music when the other guys just ran out? And it was a big, awkward mess. But the focus of the thing was old Atlanta Senior, who could barely move and who looked like a baked potato wearing a lucha costume, beat Dax up and ran him off. And I use the word run in a very generous fashion. Out of the building. So what? Again, do we have to go to the senior citizen community now to find people that can beat up the top wrestlers on the roster here? And what is going on? FTR is going to have a match with a lucha team in Mexico. Wonderful. That doesn't mean that you make them look like complete fucking imbeciles and complete ineffective morons on the TV in America. If you can't find somebody, if there is nobody in Lucha Libre today that can get over as a star and be impressive, etc., you just don't book the fucking match. But now it's senior citizens that we're. Am I overstating Atlanta Senior?
Well, again, he is a legend, although not really in the States, unless you're one of the fans who watched Lucha from Arena Mexico in the States. But he is a Lucha legend. He's your age. FTR, I said it last time, they've lost a lot of luster. And they're going down this road here. At least the babyfaces kind of had one segment where they came out on top, I guess.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't even AEW babyfaces.
Well, that's true.
It was another company's babyfaces that don't appear here often and probably ain't going to appear here again after this Mexico show, beating up the standard AEW talent.
And a lot of segments on the show turn into the end of UWF on Fast Forward. Just people running out, just what is going on here? And then the show continues. That was the end of the show. Here it's just like, and there'll be more show after we clean up this mess.
Yes. Every segment ends in, it's breaking down in Tulsa. We'll be right back. So they came right back with Toni Storm, who came out to eat some more of Mercedes Moon's steak dinner that she had at ringside. But before that she could even get in the ring, out came Julia Hart and Blue Sky, and they beat up Toni Storm on the floor. And then the doctors came over to check on Toni, who'd been beaten up by her opponent and a henchman on the floor. And then they said, okay, she's all right. So they rang the bell, started the match. Oh, my God. Holy God, these fucking people. Tony's good about writing down angles that he's seen in the past. He's just not good about remembering that he's done them all 100 times. So Toni Storm wrestled Julia Hart. Mercedes was at ringside with her room service cart. Storm won. Mercedes got in the ring and beat Storm up. Mina Mellons came out and ran Mercedes off. But then, as Mina turned around to check on Storm, Mercedes got back in the ring and beat Mina up too, and then did her little stripper dance. And then went out to find some Pacific Northwest woods to get lost in. So, again, which angle are we supposed to remember from this 10-minute girls match? The one they did before the match? The one they did after the match? Who's mad at who here? Is it Julia Hart and Blue Sky that are mad at Storm? Or is it Mercedes that's mad at Storm? Now, I know Mina would be mad at Julia Hart and Blue Sky, but she's got to be mad at Mercedes too, because Mercedes beat her up. I'm just trying to keep this straight, Brian, so I know what the angles are.
You talked me into it. I believe everything you just said.
Okay. Well, then that it's clear as day.
Mina held Toni Storm to her bosom. That was her save. She picked up her head and held it to her bosom.
We need to get a breast milk sponsor.
What?
We need to get a breast milk sponsor.
That wasn't a what? That wasn't like a repeat that what. That was like that's a crazy what.
Well, I was just thinking, who's the leader in the breast milk business these days?
I don't know.
Well, they should sign up, Mina and some of these girls for spokespeople. Well, and then we could run the spots and.
Well, hopefully, I don't know if they're just lactating, at will on the go.
Is commercial breast milk more expensive than regular old vitamin D milk that you get in, various places like the convenience store?
How do we move on from this? How do we? I
just didn't know whether there was a lot. I bet there's a lot of money in it. It's a specialized fucking product. I'd be happy to be one of the milkers.
Someone's playing. There's music. That means
moving on.
Moving right along.
I'm moving on. They had a mixed 6-man. I can't be one of the milkers. A mixed 6-man tag team extravaganza was up next with Minaj and Mansoor, the male models, and they teamed up with Taya Valkyrie against Willow Nightingale, Mark Briscoe, and Ishii. Poor Mark Briscoe. So they had that. Then Bandido had a nice little match with our friend Frank Mortis. You
know what? To what you said earlier, how like there's so many of these luchadors, especially right now. This is like what they would do with Japanese wrestlers going into the big Forbidden Door show every year, but now it's Grand Slam International. And since it's in Mexico, it's nonstop luchadors on this show. So many of them are interchangeable. Bandido does have something a little different.
Yeah.
A little bit of size, charisma, even though he's wearing a mask. He is a little different than a lot of these, the Commanders, the Gravities, the Hypertension. I don't know.
Hologram. Hypertension and Hologram were a good team. I remember. Except Hypertension he gets so red in the face. The finish of this match was just spectacular. The silly wrestling fans applauded it. Now, old rigor mortis is, besides he's wearing the bull costume, he's a big guy. He's heavy, right? He's a hefty fellow. And Bandido's not bad. He's a strong fellow. He's got a good upper body. So they decide to both climb up to the top rope and fight, in quotation marks, on the top rope. And the finish of the match was them helping each other. First one foot, then the other foot, then they're holding on to each other, the other guy, so that they can stand up on the top rope, so that then Bandido can reach under and pick Mortis up with in a scoop slam position, and Mortis can stand there balancing carefully, and as soon as the scoop happens, he can go right up with him, because they don't want to make any mistake, because they're going to fall off and break both their necks. And then Bandido turns around, gives him a backwards power slam off the fucking top rope. The move itself, once that it actually went into motion, was a hell of a bump, and it should have been the finish. And old Bandido barely turned her over before he would have landed on his head. So that part I don't have the problem with. It's the 30 to 40 seconds beforehand where they helped each other climb up on the top turnbuckle and balance there precariously in order to cooperate with each other and pulling that fucking move off. That's what I have the problem with. And that's why, again, the audience for AEW, and maybe the modern audience, they just want, as we said on the last show with Mr. Iguana, they just want silly fucking wrestling. And they applauded that bogus, phony fucking move because everybody landed hard, not jeering like, holy fucking shit, like any other fan for the previous 100 years would have, because it was so laughable that they helped each other do it to begin with. I just thought I'd point that out. And I know that you enjoyed the match between Thekla and Queen Waiata.
You know what? It wasn't always built up to be. I heard that. I didn't see it. By this point, I was done. I fell asleep. This was so much stuff. And again, once it hits Collision, I have no obligation to watch any of this. But I heard for Thekla's debut, Queen Aminata, the way it was being presented to me, was stiff with her, wasn't cooperative with her, no-sold the finish and immediately got up and stormed off, what someone said. So I had to see it. And this match was certainly, other than the pin, or other than the submission, other than the finish, this match was great at getting Queen Aminata over as an ass kicker.
Yeah.
She's got size, she's tall. But that wasn't, I think, what this was supposed to be. I don't know what this was.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't watch closely for any ill will. I just thought they were going to have a fucking crummy match. But what it was, I don't know if there was ill feeling, or if maybe Thekla's one of these generous types that, even though she's just started on the show and she has a gimmick and they're apparently trying to push her, she's going to just let the queen just look like $1 million because old Waiata just beat the shit out of Thekla from the start of the match pretty much to the finish. You didn't see a lot of the Thekla stuff, and she didn't do any of her shit really that gets over. She did the back bend at one point, and then after she got her ass handed to her for about 10 minutes or so, she got the submission hold on Queen Waiata and won the match. But I didn't pay any attention for what did she look like? She was perturbed when she rolled out and stalked off after the match.
See, that's the thing. I didn't notice anything, but then someone sent someone sent, because it goes around, and then they're like, hey, did you see this? It was a video, and it was like all the way zoomed in. So you see like the bottom rope in her head. And it's like, look at how mad she is. I mean, She lost the match.
Well, it could be some of these people also, they leave the ring looking pissed off because they realize already that their performance was substandard. Like the other day when Bobby Lashley tried to spinebuster that fucking guy 15 no, it was Hobbs. It was Hobbs. I'm sorry. Hobbs tried to spinebuster the guy 3 or 4 times. The guy kept jumping away from him. Hobbs didn't look too fucking happy. But nevertheless, that was that. And then the main event of Collision, we are 4 hours in now, was an 8-man tag team match because we haven't had enough multiple person matches. After the 30-minute draw in a singles match, the job match with Mystico, the 6-man with the Hurts and the Squirts, the 6-person mixed contest, the goddamn endless run-ins, the contract signing that led to a murder. Now we get Cole O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, and Danny Garcia with Daddy Mac in the corner against Josh Alexander, Lance Archer, Take a Shit, and Chia with Rocky and Trent in the corner. And that match, ladies and gentlemen, ran over. Again, second week in a row, they've got 4 fucking hours. They're losing viewers like a goddamn carotid artery patient is losing blood, and they still have to run it over. And that was Wednesday night. You see why I would rather be in the business of the old days when you could live in a nice place and you could work close to home and you could make a lot of money, all things considered, and you didn't have to deal with shit like this.
Well, again, they're making nice money now.
Yeah, but they got to deal with shit like this.
Well, some of them may not realize it's shit. Not everyone's shit is someone else's shit. Sometimes you think your own shit smells good.
Yeah, sometimes it's shit and sometimes it's shinola.
All right, well, that was AEW Collision, and that was the end of the night for AEW Summer Blockbuster. Was it Blockbuster or Spectacular?
I don't know, Summer Spectacular thing. I'm just waiting. Brian, you got any shinola in your house? We ought to start advertising shinola also. Gets a bad rap. It's always paired with shit.
Again, one of those expressions that... Well, go ahead, yes.
I was just going to say, but speaking of not knowing shit from shinola, before we talk about the ratings for this program, where it'll sound more like shit than shinola, what's going on at the Arcadian Vanguard Network? Their organ meister?
All right, getting you in a good mood with the organ music. Let's do this quickly. We've been doing this for a while, and AEW took the life out of me a second time this week just talking about it. Go through everything, listen to everything, do what you gotta do, be who you need to be. ArcadianVanguard.com, wherever you find your favorite podcast. On Facebook, Facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. And of course, on Twitter at, where are we? At Superpodcast. That's where we are. Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon. This week, a look at the NWF, Johnny Powers, and all that. With the NWF, go through listen to the show today. SUAWpod.com or look for Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon wherever you find your favorite podcast. Don't forget about the wrestling news. Each and every day, get your wrestling news for free. Get it directly from the Wrestling News at thewrestlingnews.com, wherever you find your favorite podcast. No clickbait, no paywall, just the wrestling news. Let's mention 40 years ago, what was happening in wrestling. Hear about it today on Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam, McAdamPod.com, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts on the 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership! That's not an official sound there, Jim. But go through the archive today, 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcasts, the Mothership.
I got a bootleg cha-ching. All right, let's close up by figuring out who and how many and why did they watch that program this past Wednesday night.
Well, we have the ratings here. There's a lot to open because it's 2 different shows, technically. AEW Dynamite, June 11th, 2025, 8 to 10:01 p.m., according to WrestleNomics. On average, watched by 597,000 viewers.
Ouch, they're back below 600,000 for their big summer blockbuster. That just breaks my heart.
And we'll just say it here too, AEW Collision, same night, same place, same Tony place, same Tony channel, from 10:01 to 12:04 a.m., 397,000 viewers on average.
Jeez, actually, that may be a little better than last week. So they did better. They did worse at the beginning, but better at the end. How's this all going to play out, Brian? Let's whip through these.
It's another one of those weeks. A lot of quarter hours here. These were compiled by WrestleNomics. Quarter 1, 8 to 8:15 p.m. The Adam Page, Christopher Daniels backstage segment with the Death Riders backstage 2. And the start of Swerve Strickland versus Will Osprey. 672,000 viewers.
Ouch. Okay. They started out in the 800,000s again last week, and then, of course, plummeted precipitously, but now they're back to much of their core audience at the start. So I predict Dynamite ain't going to drop as badly as it normally does, but then the gates are going to open with Collision. Go ahead.
Yes, the gates of agony, so to speak.
Yes.
Quarter 2, 8:15, 8:30 p.m. The continuation of Swerve versus Osprey with picture-in-picture twice. 618,000 viewers.
And there you go. They lost 54,000, but normally it's a six-figure loss because they didn't start high and they've got their main event on early, so they're trying to keep them. These are the faithful.
Well, let's see how high they can go. We go to quarter 3, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. The continuation again of Swerve versus Osprey. The post-match with the Death Riders, the Young Bucks, Prince Nana, then this is a separate segment. The Kazuchika Okada Don Callis backstage angle. 662,000 viewers.
So do you think that they came back when they heard that the first match was still going, or just this is the fluctuation?
I don't know how that works. The people just keep checking back in. Is the match over yet? Who knows? But let's see what the rest of the story tells us. Quarter 4, 8:45 to 9 p.m. An ad break. The Hurt Syndicate Commander backstage angle. Mystico versus Blake Christian. Mystico and the Hurt Syndicate. And Jet Speed Mascara Dorado live angle, as it says here. 573,000 viewers.
Ouch. So now they're officially down 100,000 from the start, which that ain't normally bad. It's kind of average, except that they started low. So they're already down below 6 at the end of the first hour.
Well, we go to the big 9 o'clock hour, quarter 5, 9 to 9:15 p.m. Again, as it says it here, the continuation of Jet Speed and Mascara Dorada, Speedball Bailey, Kevin Knight, and Mascara Dorada, that is, versus the Hurt Syndicate, with picture-in-picture, 602,000 viewers.
Okay, so they picked up 29,000 at the top of the hour. They are still remarkably consistent for an AEW program in that they're staying in the same 100,000 range for the first hour and 15 minutes. That's very unusual.
Well, we go to quarter 6, 9:15 and 9:30 p.m. An ad break, the Adam Page Death Riders Ops live angle, and an ad break, 563,000 viewers.
And back down to, that's their lowest point at this juncture, but they're still only down 110,000 from the start.
We go now to quarter 7, 9:45 to 10 p.m. Oh, no, excuse me. 9:30 to, where are we? 9:30 to 9:45.
No, we're at quarter 7.
Quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45. I messed up.
No, yes, you're right. Quarter 7. 9:30 to 9:45. That's what I'm saying.
Megan Bain and Penelope Ford versus, as it says here, KJ with picture-in-picture ads. The Kazuchika Okada Kenny Omega video. 571,000 viewers.
So about 8,000 up from quarter 6, about the same. They're holding in there.
Anna J. We go now to quarter 8, 9:45 to 10 p.m. Overrun in a sense. Kazuchika Okada and Kenny Omega video continued. An ad break. And the beginning and middle of the Okada Omega Don Callis live angle. 517,000 viewers.
Jesus Christ. So Kenny, where did the viewers go?
Low point in the key demo, 184, down from 217 the quarter before that, so a big hit there.
What is a low point for everything in the whole show? From 672 at the start to 517. It was a low point not only viewership-wise, key demo, but artistically as well.
We go down to quarter 9, the start of Collision, but the finish of Okada and Callis and Kenny's live angle, this is 10 to 10:15 p.m., the Adam Cole entrance, and the start of Anthony Bowens versus Kyle Fletcher with picture-in-picture, 498,000 viewers.
Okay, so now they're under 500,000, and their second program is going to average under 4, so here they go.
Quarter 10, 10:15 to 10:30 p.m., Bowens versus Fletcher continued. The post-match with Lance Archer, Adam Cole, the Carlos Cabrera, Atlantis Jr., FTR, Stokely Hathaway, Adam Cole live angle, 445,000 viewers.
Jesus, now we're seeing attrition take hold. They're getting the fuck out of there.
We go now to quarter 11, 10:30 to 10:45 p.m. Continuation of the Atlantis family and Adam Cole and FTR and Callis. Was Callis involved in that? It says here, Don Callis family, Hechicero, Bandido, Templario. Oh yeah, went into that match, a Brody King live angle. And then Big Bill and Brian Keith and the Workhorseman backstage angle. And Mercedes Monet's entrance into the start of Tony Storm versus Julia Hart.
Jesus.
It's a lot going on there. 501,000 viewers.
Wait a minute, they popped up to 501,000 out of nowhere for all that. Gained 56,000 viewers back. That's an anomaly.
Well, we go now to quarter 12, 10:45 to 11 p.m. Continuation of Tony versus Julia, the post-match with Mercedes, the Ricochet, Blake Christian, Lee Johnson backstage angle, an ad break, Mark Briscoe and Tomohiro Ishii and Willow Nightingale versus the M&M Collection and Taya Valkyrie, 440,000 viewers.
And they're headed back down, and that's the low point of the night so far.
We go to quarter 13, the big 11 o'clock hour. The continuation of Briscoe and Ishii and Willow versus M&M and Taya. The Chris Statlander, Wheeler Yuta, Marina Shafir backstage angle, whatever that was. And the start of the Beast Mortos versus Bandido, a picture-in-picture, 384,000 viewers.
Ouch. All right.
Let's keep this rolling. We go to the next quarter, 11:15 to 11:30 p.m. Continuation of Mortos versus Bandido. Monet and Zeuxis? What? Zeuxis. Mercedes Monet and Zeuxis backstage angle. I don't know what that is.
I don't know.
An ad break. The Hangman Page, Young Bucks, Nana, Swerve backstage angle. And the start of Tekla. I was about to say Thekla. Tekla versus Queen Aminata. 363,000 viewers. 11:30 to 11:45. Continuation of Aminata versus Tekla. Picture-in-picture. Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian backstage angle and an ad break, 3:32. 11:45 to 12 p.m. Recap of Hechicero and Don Callis family versus Daniel Garcia and Paragon. With picture-in-picture, 269. And then 5-minute overrun into the big midnight hour. Hechicharo's whole thing continued. 254. 89,000 in the key demo.
So again, in 4 hours, they went from 672,000 to 254,000. That's a loss of 418,000 viewers.
One day something will gain. Just wait.
One day my gains will come.
Heard by many wrestlers, actually, that song.
Yes. They better hope it's capital gains, because I don't think they're going to gain any audience with television programs like that. But
right.
anyhow.
Anyhow, it's your show.